All right. It is 4 o'clock, everyone. I know we're going to get some more joining and we'll be recording this today. But thanks for joining us and glad you could make it. This will be our second webinar on life after Disney. For those of you who may have joined the first one or seen the video replay on YouTube, we'll make sure to post that and hopefully you got to take a look at that. And we just wanted to do some follow up sessions and just talk to you all because I know a lot of people are going through a lot right now. There's a lot of disruption, a lot of uncertainty, and is a group of us that have are living a life after Disney, got great experience at Disney, and now are out in the I guess out of our natural habitats, out in the real world, figuring stuff out. So we thought it would be an opportunity for us to talk to you all and have some various people here give you some backgrounds and some experience what they did. So basically, today we are going to I want to introduce each person on the line, and then Lee Cockerell is going to give us some words of wisdom. As he said, he's been fired and disrupted a few times in his life, so he can share some of those stories with you. And then we'll go into each of our speakers today is going to talk about their journey at Disney and sort of their transition outside and how they dealt with it and some of the barriers they ran into, hopefully to help you think about your transition if you are leaving the company. And at the end, we'll do some Q&A and then we will wrap it up. So we do have three people visiting us today, including Lee and I. First one is Lowell Doringo. Lowell had a variety of roles at leadership and talent development at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. He was a business programs facilitator at the Disney Institute and a project consultant with the Global Operations Training Team and a training manager for park operation. In addition, in 2007, he was selected among Disney's 62,000 employees to serve as a Walt Disney World ambassador, which is quite a feat. Today, Lowell lives in Irvine, California, where he leads the global talent development for the world-renowned video game and entertainment publishing company Blizzard Entertainment. He holds a bachelor degree in communications from the University of Texas at Austin and a master's of science and organizational leadership from Norwich University. Secondly, we have Megan Maul joining us. She spent 8 years in a variety of positions at Walt Disney World, from a Blizzard Beach slide operator to a management intern and eventually a park support manager during the rollout of My Magic Plus at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Megan learned the value of staying flexible and using the basics to navigate her career. She has a bachelor's degree of economics at the University of Florida, and really said it's the foundation that of her time at Disney that has opened doors that she didn't know existed outside the Disney bubble. Megan is now in Houston, Texas, where she works for Hyatt Hotels and Resorts, managing the overall guest experience and assists with training and opening new hotels for the brand. And lastly, we have John Walsh. He's a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, an entrepreneur with a passion for helping people and businesses accelerate their potential and go from start to standout as fast as possible. His primary focus is on students and young professionals, but he also coaches executives and advises emerging businesses. He spent over 20 years in finance and strategy as an executive with the Walt Disney Company and the Madison Square Garden Company. And he continues to serve on the board of directors for Disney's employee-owned credit union. So once again, some great people here who have donated their time and their experiences to really talk to everyone here, and just maybe give you all a different point of view and some ideas as you look to make that changeover. So we are going to start with Lee and have him tell us some wise words from the mountaintop. So Lee, what's on your mind?
Yeah, the mountaintop. Well, hi, everybody. Again, hopefully we can help you. Hopefully you're going to those websites that were set up for you, that some of them are listing jobs that are available. A lot of major companies did list positions they had, some in other states. For you who can move, you certainly might want to consider that. Priscilla and I moved 11 times in my career, because not always because we wanted to, it was because some of my judgment errors sometimes with not getting along with the boss or getting fired once and not having a job for almost 3 months, and certainly counted on friends and family to help us get through that time. Yeah, I got fired once because I took a wrong job, didn't check it out. The place went bankrupt 90 days after I went there, and I was stuck with a 3-year-old, a Volkswagen, and no money. and It worked out. We got through it. But one of the things I want to say, again, and a lot of the things we may say today, we've said before, and you may have heard them already again, but I want to tell you again, do not underestimate the value you have to other companies out there in the world. You know more than you can imagine, and you know more than a lot of those companies you're even going to go talk to or interview with, because you possess some things that uh, organizations are having trouble getting, which is good attitudes, reliability, trustworthiness, being on time to work, being able to work with other people and get along with other people. And there are a lot of companies that are still hiring. So don't sit at home and think about, well, because you're in a special category right now. I think hotels, restaurants, and the hospitality theme park business, that's one section that got probably hit the hardest of anybody else. But all these other companies out there are, they're a lot of them are doing extremely well. There's a lot of call centers that need people. Some of those you can work from home. I mean, I told Daniel the other night, I said, I would be so happy when I call my cell phone company or my cable company or any company that I had a problem with, and an ex-Disney person answered the phone instead of what I usually get. And you just have an amazing ability, and also you come with the brand on you. When you apply for a job and you talk about Disney, that's going to be recognized. I mean, whether you think it or not. Some of you've been at Disney so long, you've probably gotten to where you think, well, that's where everything is, and you can have a great future after that. I mean, my best days were after I got fired. I got to Marriott, and I had 17 years at Marriott, and then I left there because I didn't get the last big promotion I wanted. I got passed over, and it wasn't 2 years later I got recruited by Disney. I mean, so we can work up in our mind that woe is me and things are not going to work out and all, but there's a lot of huge opportunities out there, and I hope you will go out and make those calls. And I think you really got to think about, if you want to get back to work quickly, is you got to think about kind of getting back on your day schedule. Get up every morning. Your new job's to find a job. You got to work it, and you just don't know which call is going to work or which connection's going to work. We've been able to recommend some job interviews for several people so far because of who we know, who they know, and people writing to us to say, do you have anybody that knows about Disney? Daniel and I get a pretty good reach, and I'm sure John, Megan, and others will tell you about connections is everything. And you can make those connections. We put people together that didn't know each other just last week. And I think they trust Daniel, they trust me, others, and if we tell them they should talk to a person, we have belief, and they do. And we're also pushing pretty hard out there in the world to tell people this is the best time in the world to upgrade your talent in your company, especially with all these Disney people that are available. So that's kind of my story. Again, let me see what else I wrote down. Oh, well, I think really that website that's been set up with jobs on it, work those and call, because those companies actually put their names on there. So they're expecting calls from Disney people. So you just never know what it'd be. I mean, if I went to my doctor or my dentist or anywhere and I walked in and the receptionist was from Disney, I would be happy because I would know I was going to be attention to detail. People are on top of things. They're doing the right things. And so just go back through this. What you know that you don't know, but compared to everybody else out in the world, you probably will stand out. So I'll let you go on with this, Dan, and then I'll think about if I got anything else before we close up here as I listen to the other comments. But it will all work out. It always does.
Very good. Thanks, Lee. The jobs for the 28.com, I put that in the comments on this webinar, and that's the website to go to. That's the one that we are sending everyone to, because it seems like that's gotten a good a critical mass behind it. It's free. And a former cast member who works for Chick-fil-A now has created that website. And so it's a great place. Jobs for the 28k.com, and Ear for Each Other, which Carrie McPherson, some of her partners started. She's on the call today. And that's another place that I'm telling everyone I know who's coming out of Disney to go apply to be on that private group on Facebook, because it's a great critical mass of people. People are sharing side gigs they have, and we are going to continue to put whatever we know about job possibilities and other things on that site. So go ahead and use that as your central destination. That's the one we're using. There's probably other things out there, but those are the ones we're familiar with, and it's probably the simplest. So we're going to go over to a gentleman who, as I mentioned, was a great manager who did the emerging leaders program at Walt Disney World. And if you participated, you probably were at a graduation that he ran, and did a great job with that. And as I mentioned, was an ambassador and went out and is now out in California working for a video game entertainment company. So Lowell, you're on.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Thanks, Lee. And thank you, everybody. It's so great to interact with cast members again. One thing that I always say is once a cast member, always a cast member. There are just certain things about the culture and about the way in which you were trained and developed at Disney that sticks with you for life. And I will be the first to tell you all that, yes, there is definitely life after Disney. You will have an appreciation for Disney. You get to be a guest again, a true guest. And but at the same time, know that what it is that you've gained from Disney, your ability to work with people from all over the world, your ability to empathize, your ability to carry yourself in a way that is confident, in a way that is that has a lot of grit behind it, is really key. I made the decision to leave Disney back in 2016. And believe me, it was one of the hardest ones. I always saw myself as retiring with the company. But one thing that I started discovering towards, I was with the company for about 15 years, and the last 8 of those years, I was with the Emerging Leaders Program, leading that group. So towards the last 2 years, what I saw myself doing was evolving. I was evolving from being a Disney person to being an industry person. And what I mean by that is when I joined Disney, I joined in operations. I was in the theme parks, and then I started, I have such a passion for training and development. But what I started discovering was that passion for training and development started growing and growing and growing. And I started realizing I don't have to just do this at Disney, that Disney is just one facet. And I joined Disney when I was 22 years old, straight out of college. And, here I am, 37 years old. And I said to myself, you know what? There's got to be a lot more to the training and development industry than Disney. Disney does things great, but I wanted to learn more. And so I found myself going from being a Disney person to being an industry person in terms of training and development. So that's when I started looking outside and looking elsewhere. And, for me, it was, I know that I'm very fortunate that I had the choice to be able to leave, but at the same time, it was really hard because you're part of, you don't want to leave that culture and that nest. But I went ahead and did it, and decided to go from a company like Disney, 60,000 plus individuals, to a very, what I call small. They don't think it's small, but Blizzard's about 5,000 employees. I think that's small. They don't. And when I joined, a couple of I wasn't as prepared for the shock as I actually experienced. When you're at Disney and you think about how you do things and how you have so many resources to go to. I think about Disney University and the number of resources. We had writers and designers and multimedia specialists and all these folks. To now, I was a team of one. I had to do everything. I didn't have all these resources, and that was a huge shock for me to have to do that. But having that level of grit, can-do attitude that you gain at Disney, that's what I relied on to be able to then persevere in that role. But I think the other thing that was a really big shock for me in my role going into Blizzard was that while people still have a high level of excellence in their company, excellence can mean a different thing, regardless of what company you go to. Excellence in the hospitality field and working at Walt Disney World is going to look different than in a video game company. And I had to learn how to adjust. That was huge. I can't even begin to tell you all how many times in the back of my head when I first started at Blizzard, I kept saying, why do they do it this way? If they just did it this way, it'd be faster, it'd be better. When I sat in orientation, and I would be 100% honest because everyone at Blizzard knows this. When I sat in orientation, I was taking notes on ways they can improve it immediately. I was crawling through my skin and thinking, why aren't they doing more storytelling? Why aren't they doing this? Then I had to calm down. And I had to and say, I need to understand their culture first. I need to understand. I had to constantly remind myself, this is not Disney. But I didn't forget what Disney excellence could be. After about a year's worth of convincing HR at Blizzard to let me take on orientation, I did. And we actually recreated the traditions type program there. But I had to sell it and I had to help them understand why using cross U. By the way, also words like cross U, no one knows what the heck that means. So I had to explain what a cross U was. And so we did it. We were able to move there. But I had to understand the world that I had now entered first. I could no longer rest on my laurels that people understand what I'm talking about coming from Disney or even coming from the hospitality world. It will take time. And you're going to say to yourself constantly, why do they do it this way? If they just did it this way, it'd be faster and better. You got to take the time to learn and understand because the world is not Disney. And that's okay. But you can take what you've learned and what you know to be excellent in the Disney level and in time infuse it into whatever it is you do and wherever you go. Like I said, we recreated the traditions program for our new hire orientation. We're now onto our second team of individuals. We had 90 people come out and, oh, when I use the word audition, oh, everyone like burst out laughing at me. Like, what do you mean? Like they have to do a song and dance routine? And I'm like, maybe. But really at the end of the day, though, what it came down to was helping them understand why we do what we do at Disney, but also be very respectful of the culture that you are now going into. Yeah. You know, I think everybody at Disney, how many of you, and this is a moment of honesty for all of you, whenever somebody external came into Disney, we would kind of scoff at them saying, well, you know, at my old job, what we used to do was, and we would all scoff. We would say, but you're at Disney now. Guess what? Tables are going to turn and you're going to be the new person joining a different company. And you need to be very mindful and respectful of the culture that you're now joining and be mindful of not always saying, well, at Disney, you know, if we did it the way Disney did it, you're not at Disney anymore. Keep your standards, keep your level of excellence, but use a high level of empathy for the people that you're now joining in order to not alienate yourself to the culture that you've now agreed upon joining. And that was a big, big, big lesson for me. You know, I had to say to myself, I'm Blizzard now. And I'm still Disney. So it's kind of a little bit of my story. You know, it's still, people still go, what the heck is an ambassador anyway? And I'm like, just Google it and you'll figure it out. But, you know, it's, you know, there is life after Disney. Believe you me, there is. But not only is there a life after Disney, but it's still fun to, well, I'm near Disneyland. It'll be fun eventually when I get to go there. But watching a Disney movie, yes, I have the 3-year subscription to Disney Plus. I'm still geeked out on everything Disney. So you can still be a fan and be an alumni, but also be able to move on.
That's great, Lowell. I think a couple things you said is I can't see you scoffing anybody, but if you said it, I guess it is true. And that it's true. Having worked at various parks and resorts, and no one ever wants to hear about where you used to be. So I learned over time, instead of saying, well, when I was in parks or when I was in resorts or when I worked at Disneyland Paris, you just say, you know what? I heard about this, or have you ever thought about this? And and when you quote your source, people get sick of hearing about that. So I think that's a great point you make there. and they're respecting the culture as you come in, walk that line. But to your point, you knew right away for the orientation, I know
Mhm,
this can be improved upon because you
mhm,
were familiar with it. And
mhm.
as we talked about in the last webinar, everyone knows much more than they know.
Yeah.
The standard is much higher, just because what you see is just the normal way of doing things is actually a very high standard and over the
Yes.
top standard for most companies.
Well, I'll even add on top of that, Dan. I am amazed at how, after leaving at Disney, you just make it happen. You make it work. If something is there, if there's a whole bunch of strollers that are everywhere in the middle of the park and they need to get parked, you're not going to go look for somebody to go do it. You just you just go do it. Like, you just make it happen. And I'm amazed, as I ventured out of Disney, and how many people will get stuck at not being able to just get something done or contact a person. Whereas I'm like, give me their number, let me call them. Like, you're not afraid to just make a decision, coming from Disney. And I will tell you all right now, your ability to just take a risk in calling somebody up and making a decision, in owning your decisions, that is huge. I can't even begin to tell you how many people are so gun shy to make decisions out there in the world. But not a Disney cast member. I had no problem telling a kid to come down from whatever tree they're climbing on, right? Because safety first. So you make the decisions. And that capability is something that is a true distinct characteristic of being a cast member that you can take anywhere. It's this, you know, ability to make a decision is a lot more important than you think it is.
That's good. One last question. We didn't talk about this in advance, but someone's out there right now saying, okay, I'm going to be leaving. How do they think about going to get a job? I mean, we have the
Yeah.
jobs for the 28K. What
Hmm.
resources did you use or would you suggest if people are just trying to figure out what's available?
LinkedIn is really important. I will tell you that LinkedIn, everybody will jump onto your LinkedIn page like that. Be sure, and also all of your social media. Be sure that if it is, hey, you are more than allowed to have your own personal social media, but just be very mindful of it. That is one of the very first things that any company is going to join, because your own personal reputation is going to become part of their reputation too. The other thing too that you're going to have to do, and this is really hard, you're going to have to undisneyfy your language. You need to do a control F, and anytime you had a cast member, put an employee. Um, be very mindful of that. No one knows what, in the outside world, what are the basics, or customer service or guest service basics. Switch your language up. It is hard. It's difficult. Um, because it's not just because of our love for the culture, but because it's so ingrained in you. It's become a part of your vernacular. You got to start switching it out. You have to start talking about employee instead of cast member, customer service instead of guest service. Um, four keys basics, no one knows what that is, like in the outside world, like just trying to explain it. Instead, just talking, use very industry specific vernacular when you are writing up your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and also in your interviews. Just try to be very, very self-aware of the vernacular that you use when building that out. And the last thing I also want to put in there, if you have measurable differences that you've made in your departments, if you have done measurable needle moving uh, actions or accomplishments, that's what people want to hear. Um, and making sure that you look at your job, what did I actually do, how did you actually move the needle in there, and putting that in there. People want to see results. And I'm sorry, I did have one last thing too. At Disney, we're taught to be humble. We're taught to have a lot of humility, and it's team and it's we. When you are interviewing, it is about you. You need to sell you. Be careful of using the royal we, because they're not interviewing your team. They're not interviewing everyone's collective thoughts and ideas. They want to know about you. So while we are so about teamwork and being unselfish, this is about you when you're interviewing for a job. Don't be afraid to talk about your accomplishments. Don't boast, but talk about what you did to contribute to the success of your previous company, which would be Disney.
Very good, Lowell. Nate asked, how long did it take before you felt you understood the Blizzard culture before you were able to start to sell them on changing it?
I had to start learning to speak geek. I had to learn how to speak video game. I had to learn to speak geek. I'd start playing the games. I start wearing the t-shirts. As you can see, yeah, I will say I don't miss wearing suits. So I had to immerse myself completely, just like at Disney. You know how we tell new hires at Disney, go to the parks, go play, go do whatever. I had to do the same thing. But truthfully, for me, because I've always worked in the service industry, this is my first time to go to tech. It was weird for me not to see my end user, to not see a guest. You know, even though I worked at DU, if I needed that, if I needed that bit of pixie dust, hop on the bus, go to the kingdom, walk around, and I can see why I do what I do. I didn't have that anymore. Fortunately, working at Blizzard, we have this thing called BlizzCon, which is our annual convention. 35,000 of our biggest fans go to the Anaheim Convention Center. That's where it clicked for me. Because for me personally, I need to see the end user and how our brand and our product impact them. And when I saw it, I felt it, I was able to start saying we. I was finally able to start saying Blizzard, because when I first joined, I kept saying you all, you. And it took a while for me to finally flip the conversation to say we. But once that happened for me, and that's because I'm a guest service person. That's always who I'm going to be. And once I was able to see our Blizzard employees face to face interacting with our players, that's when it all came. That's when it all made sense to me. So it's going to be different for everybody. But at the end of the day, you have to fully embrace where you have gone to. You will miss Disney. And another thing that I had to do was my first couple of months when I moved out here, there'd be days I'd go to Disneyland after work because I just needed to be in Disney. I missed it so much. Um, but eventually, what was once, like 3 times, 4 times a month turned into, once a quarter, because I finally was able to start letting go of that. So it'll
Very
take
good.
time, but you'll get there.
That's great. Two comments. Ryan Kirsch, he was the emerging leader program Sweet 16. So he said,
Yeah.
hi, Lowell.
Hi,
And
Ryan.
then Amy Brennan said, I will second what Lowell said about using I language versus we language. I've been interviewing with Amazon, and they are huge on that. I recommend checking out Amazon interview techniques because I found them helpful for all interviews and not just there. So thanks for those comments, Amy.
Cool.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Lowell.
Thank you.
All right. Megan Maul. Megan is in the middle. She had to break away. She's in the middle of opening a new hotel. And you all know what openings are like. So thanks for squeaking out a little bit of extra time here, Megan. And tell us a little bit about your journey and kind of how you left Disney and how you landed outside.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. And as he said, my name is Megan Maul. I spent 8 years working for the Mouse, and I loved every minute of it. Like Lowell, I had the luxury to choose to leave, but it was difficult. And so I think a lot of the things that we're going to say today will probably cross over. There's definitely some things that Lowell touched on that I also want to touch on. But as we're all probably going to say, there is life after Disney. You will be okay. And I think that there's just a little bit of openness and flexibility that's needed when you leave. So I started at Disney in 2009. I was coming out of my freshman year of college, and I needed a summer job. I'm born and raised in Orlando. I loved Disney growing up. And so I started working as a slide operator seasonally at Blizzard Beach Water Park. And I really spent my summers there, but because I was in college just in Gainesville, it became something for me where if I was coming home on the weekends, I would definitely try to get back and work. And I loved it. It was a great opportunity for me, but it also helped me meet some people that really helped me build on my career. I didn't know what I wanted to do after college. I got my degree in economics, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. And having had worked for Disney during the summers, one of my mentors, Maylene Bonilla, she was with the company for a long time, but she actually told me, like, do the management internship program. You know, emerging leaders was more for people that were already in the company, already leaders or coming up as coordinators and such. And me being a seasonal hourly employee, I didn't have a status position with Disney. And so she told me, you know, apply for the management internship program. And let me tell you, she recommended that I start in housekeeping and be at All Star Resort. And she said, if you can survive a year in that, you'll work anywhere. So I thank her for that to this day, because it really was an amazing opportunity to learn, especially being, you know, young, right out of college, learning management skills, learning you know, how to manage people, how to be empathetic. A lot of the people that worked for me were older than I was, and that's helped me even now. And so after my management internship program, I bounced back and forth on TAs for a while. For a few years, actually, I bounced back and forth on TAs. I did some TAs for the water park. I did some TAs in hotels. And eventually that landed me a really great opportunity. Someone took a chance on me and made me a park support manager at the studios, which is where I got to know Dan a little bit. But really, I think the biggest thing that I learned from my time as a TA, right? You're not necessarily in control of where you're gonna go. You're not necessarily in control of when your assignment's going to end, but it's the flexibility, the willingness to learn that really will, you know, help you get your next assignment. And it kind of goes hand in hand with right now. You know, it's your willingness to maybe change industries, maybe change what you've done for Disney. And like Lowell said, and like I will say, use the skills that you've learned, the basic instilled in you, to really help you pivot. Right now in our world, in our time, it's all about pivoting, whether people are losing their jobs because of you know, their restaurant being closed, or because the theme parks have closed and laid off this many people. For everyone going through this right now, it's about pivoting. It's for business owners, the same thing. How can they pivot to change for this time? So whether that's, you know, putting in applications for businesses that are booming right now, like all of the apps, like the delivery driving services, whatever it might be that can get you through until you find what you want, that may be what helps you make the means end right now. But when I left Disney, I chose an opportunity. I was coming off of being a park support manager. I had actually gotten status as a housekeeping manager at Port Orleans Resort. And I really had fallen in love with project management and being able to work with multiple, you know, lines of business. And I got an opportunity to move to Seattle and work for a small boutique hotel called Thompson Hotels. They were opening a brand new hotel in Seattle. And I took the opportunity, not knowing at all what I was getting myself into, but just to say, you know what, I want to learn something. You know, I felt like I was a small fish in a large pond at that time in my career with being a housekeeping manager. You know, there's probably 10 or 15 others in a hotel the size of Port Orleans. So it was just one of those things where I felt like if I wanted to really push myself and pursue, you know, a career in operations in the industry, that I really just needed to branch out and learn some other things. And I always saw myself coming back to Disney, and I won't say that I won't go back to Disney eventually. But it really is all the things that I learned. And I promise you, having Disney on my resume was the first thing that I was asked about in every step of the interview process. Not because the majority of my experience was from Disney, Not to say that they didn't ask me about my education or anything like that, but really it was, what was it like to work for Disney? That is so cool, all that kind of stuff. People are very interested in that because they know, whether they've been to the parks or not, they know that Disney cast members are embedded and trained in having that pixie dust, having that ability and desire to go above and beyond. So, whether or not you're going to stay in hospitality and work in hotels or not at this point, your client, however that is, that's your guest now. So, if you're in tech like Lowell, his guest that he's making a difference for now is his gamer. Like for me, I'm still in hotels, but I have vendors that I work with. You're gonna have employees that work for you. Their experience is now the one that you're going above and beyond to make as memorable as possible. Why? Because you want to be their favorite boss, or their, it's in you. Like Lowell said, there will be people that you work with that don't have that in them to just get it done or to make it happen. And your ability to do that, and it's going to come natural to you. That's going to set you apart and help you. So if you have to take an entry level position now, don't be offended by that. Don't be discouraged by that. If you're taking an entry level position now, the skills that you've learned at Disney, the parts of you that are trained in customer service and in being a go-getter, those things are what is going to help you promote and propel your career quickly. Really, I think that was probably the biggest thing for me. Like Lowell said, also, you're going to have a culture shock. Um, whether it's, I moved to Seattle where people are half covered in tattoos, and I had never seen a coworker of mine tattoos before, and now I'm seeing them everywhere. So, whether it's the language. I said cast member, I swear, for 6 months at least. Um, Instead of colleague or employee or whatever, the company you're going to, whatever is in their culture to call their employees. And it still slips sometimes, but it's funny because there's some people that still ask me about show or about being on stage. And I've heard trainings where people use those Disney cultural, and they've never worked for Disney, but they respect that so much about Disney and the ability to train their cast to really be a part of the show and be a part of the experience for the guests. And I can tell you right now, I live in Houston, and I'm the guest experience manager at my hotel. And my job is all about what I learned from Disney. Right now, I make sure that anyone coming to the hotel is prepared. They tell me what they're coming for. I ask them, what they like, and then we make it happen. It's that behind the scenes pixie dust that they're like, oh, I didn't know that just because I told you I liked red wine, that I was going to get red wine served to me at the restaurant when I showed up there. It's those little details and that sort of extra above and beyond lifestyle at Disney that has really stayed with me. Um, but I also had a really hard time adjusting to what I didn't know. And that safety net, kind of like Lowell talked about, of resources, because I moved to Seattle and I was now an assistant director of housekeeping. It was a 2-person team instead of a 15-person team. And it was one of those where it was like, okay, so they're asking me about inventory, about scheduling, about payroll, about all these different questions of things I had never known, which was also exciting for me because that's the whole reason that I wanted to leave. I wanted to learn more about the industry. But it was also one of those humbling experiences of like, okay, yeah, I may have spent a lot of time as a leader, but I don't know all these things. Somebody else at Disney had the job of inventory. Somebody else at Disney had the job of ordering. Somebody else did scheduling and somebody else did payroll, right? There's a position for that specifically because of the volume at Disney. And I found that so exciting about being out of Disney, and I love Disney. I'm not trying to say anything bad about it, but it was so exciting to be able to be like, wow, I'm gonna come out of this experience, and if I go back to Disney, I'm gonna be so well rounded. I'm gonna know all these things I had no idea, and it's gonna make me that much better of a partner to my other peers. And I think I also got a chance to really learn about that when I was working on park support, of just the ability to partner with other lines of business. We get so caught sometimes in just being like, well, I'm housekeeping, I stay in my rooms or on my floor, or I'm front desk, I stay in the lobby. And instead, it was an ability to really partner with other lines of business, and like, how does my job and what I'm teaching my cast or my colleagues or my employees affect the job that you do, and really how, and I really think that is also very important, because now if you choose to stay in hotels or not, that really helps, because you can be able to say, you know what, I want to be able to, partner with you and become a better partner, and you'll learn so many new things, or just even how you really can be affecting the business. And I really think that all comes down to flexibility and open-mindedness right now. But I really think this can be an exciting time, an opportunity time. And it doesn't need to be even described necessarily as oh, I was forced to leave Disney. More of like, here's my situation, here's where I can go from here, and what else can I learn, that when Disney starts hiring again, I'm gonna be more well-rounded. I'm gonna have learned something new that I can then bring back and add more value. So I just want to say that the value of the pixie dust is definitely, it's definitely there. People will see your resume on their desk with Disney written next to somebody else's who doesn't have that, and they're going to be intrigued about yours. They're going to know that not only are you customer service friendly, but also the loyalty that comes with, I mean, all of us that are on this call today, um, I would say, are still loyal to Disney. We love Disney, right? But as someone now who's entering a new workforce, they're gonna see that your loyalty to Disney over the years, however long you've spent there, that is part of you. The loyalty to a company is part of you, and that's extremely attractive to people that are hiring. That they're not just hiring you for now, but they're hiring someone who is interested in the culture of a company, and that's what's going to breed you to be there long term.
That's great, Megan. And I agree with you 100%. The resources, when you go out and work in the quote unquote the real world, you end up doing a lot more things yourself. And that's, you get closer to running a business. And sometimes that's very surprising, because you just thought, the sheets always just ended up here. We don't know where they came
Yeah.
from. And now we have to know, and how much they cost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, that's so true. Par levels and all that stuff. It was like, oh no, they're just usually in my service closet here, and now it really is. It really does get you closer to, like you said, running a business. And it teaches you a lot. But I would say also, just to touch on kind of what Lowell mentioned, use your network, use your resources. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Also, I mean, all of us on this call are willing to help, but use your network, use the other people that you've had as mentors, throughout your career. LinkedIn, had no idea what that was before I left Disney, and I'd say that's very, very important now. The social media networks, but use your network of people, whether it be Dan, Lowell, myself, anyone, like, use the people that you know, to really help you, because it is a lot, especially right now while there are so many people applying for jobs. It does come down to who can vouch for you and who can say, oh, hey, I have this Disney cast member here, and here's their history, and I vouch for them. That does go a long way sometimes when there's people reading stacks and stacks of resumes and candidates.
Well said, Megan. Thank you very much. John Walsh. So John has had a couple of post Disney experiences. One is working for another big company and now running his own company. So John, tell us your story.
Yeah, I will. And thanks, Dan and Lee, for having me here. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach and talk about the impacts that leaving Disney had on me. Not just that, but like Lee, I also have been fired. And I want to share, I've got a unique story about that. So I want to share how that made me feel and what I was dealing with. Hopefully that a lot of you are also feeling those same things. But I wanted to share with you then what I did about it. And then I'm going to ask some questions to kind of get you to think a little bit differently about what do you do going forward. I will sort of echo what everybody said and saying that there is life after Disney, but I'm going to put a twist on it. And the twist is this. It's not that there's life after Disney. This is your life after Disney. And that's a really important distinction. And right now, as you've lost your role, or you might be on furlough or whatever else, if I can borrow from Jack Sparrow a little bit, the problem is not the problem. It's your attitude and how you think about the problem, right? And in every problem is an opportunity. So I'll share two quick things about my story. One is if any of you listen to Dan's podcast, and if you haven't, I would suggest you do that. Dan and I talked about my journey, and my story started before Disney. I was homeless when I was in high school, and it was a real struggle for me for a couple of years. And that was like real adversity, real challenges. And it took me the better part of about 10 years to pull my way out of that. And I had gotten a job with a law firm, and I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I thought this law firm was the greatest company. I loved the people. I had a great boss. It was great. Everything I could ever wanted. And then a kid who came from having nothing and being homeless to making the money I was making was great. But I got fired from that job. And what's interesting about that is that everything that you're probably feeling now is what I was feeling back then. You feel this loss of identity, right? That you were connected to this role, this particular thing that you were doing. This was my path. You have friends and colleagues and personal connections that are gone. I mean, at the time I had this wonderful girlfriend, and she was still working at the law firm, but I had gotten fired. So it was equally hard on me. It created a lot of uncertainty, not only just like in the short term, what do I do to pay my bills and all, but okay, so what happens long-term? What do I do with my life now that I've lost this role? It gets you out of your comfort zone. It's like this, I knew what to do every day, show up, this is what I'm supposed to do. And now it was like, well, now what? Right? You sort of assign meaning to it. It's like, well, if I've lost my role, that means there's something wrong with me, right? And you start taking it personally. And we don't like change as people, as humans. We don't like change. We prefer things that we know. And then probably the last is, and this is the scariest, you feel like you're starting all over again. And that's really difficult. And I would say that, because of that, when I got to Disney, I got to Disney as an intern coming out of college. And I spent my entire career, 18 years at Disney in finance. And I had a number of chances to leave Disney to go to other companies, and I didn't, mostly because of all those things that I just mentioned, which is probably what you're feeling and going through as well, as I never wanted to feel that again. But ultimately, I did end up leaving Disney, and I ended up leaving Disney effectively twice. The first was as I'd worked my way through the finance organization, my leaders moved me up to New York City to go work for Disney Plus and help launch the Disney Plus streaming video service. When I did that, Disney Plus was not fully integrated into Disney yet. So I was still with it. This was the first time I left the company. When I went to Disney Plus up in New York, one, I'm away from everything that's here in Orlando. but the company wasn't fully integrated. So I lost all my benefits. I lost my pension. It was completely a different atmosphere. It was, the startup, trying to do things while the mothership was watching. It was really difficult. And so I felt all those same things, this loss of like, what did I do? I've left Disney, of all these things that are now gone. And then ultimately I got a call from Madison Square Garden, and I left Disney completely officially. And I went to work for Madison Square Garden. And there's a couple things that I did. One, to go to New York, and two, to leave Disney and go to Madison Square Garden, and to leave Madison Square Garden to start my own company. And hopefully these things help you as well as you're going through all these things that I talked about. One was, as I was at Disney, there's a lot of opportunities at Disney. You can move around, you can learn different businesses, everything else. But at the end of the day, when you look at how big this world is and how many opportunities there are, I felt I was limiting myself at Disney when the world itself was limitless. And so by going to another company, it opens a whole new door of opportunities and things. And when I went to Madison Square Garden, I thought Disney was the greatest thing. I worked in theme parks. I had an office right there at Epcot. I was in resorts. I was in all these different places, and I loved my time there. But when I got to Madison Square Garden, I had this aha moment that, like, I got to be there at Madison Square Garden in the middle of New York City. I was working and supporting the Christmas show, the Rockettes Christmas show at Radio City Music Hall. I was able to go to the Forum in Los Angeles. I mean, I remember, like, my third day on the job, I walked onto the floor of Madison Square Garden, and the Knicks had just finished playing. Of course they lost, because they always lost when we were there, but the Knicks had just finished playing. I was able to go into the locker room afterwards, and then I watched as they were changing out the floor, because I think Bon Jovi was playing in a concert there the next night. And it was just this greatest thing about, I can't believe I'm sitting here at Madison Square Garden. And it gave me that moment of, there really is other stuff out there to see and explore and learn and get exposed to. So what I did to leave, to go to New York and then to leave the company, is I wanted to try new things, right? I wanted to see what other companies did. I wanted to meet other people. I wanted to see other places, do different work. I also wanted to grow, and I felt like I could grow more by leaving the company than I could staying at the company. Growth was really important to me. I also wanted to, I had certain dreams, and I wanted to pursue those dreams. And as great as Disney was, as much as I loved it, I felt like I was sitting in a comfort zone, and I wasn't actually pursuing those dreams that I could really go after. There were more dreams than just Disney. That was one dream, but we all have many more of them. And then probably the most important is this, is when I was thinking about leaving, and I did leave, it gave me the opportunity to stop and recalibrate my life, because I felt I was on autopilot. I was there for 18 years at Disney. I was doing, different job, moving around, but I was on autopilot. And I didn't ever get a chance to take a step back and recalibrate what was really important to me. What did I really want to do with my life? What is important around me besides my job? And that really helped me think about what the next opportunity was and where to go forward, especially from this kid that came from being homeless, getting this great job at Disney, becoming an executive, and I ended up leaving that. I will absolutely tell you that your life, not just a life after Disney, but your life extends way beyond Disney. And here's something else I'll tell you, and Lee and Dan have a lot more experience in this than I do, but when I was at Disney for 18 years, I saw a lot of people leave the company, a lot of people leave for one reason or another. I can probably count on two hands how many of them actually came back, which told me that people left and they found other things to do. They found happiness. They found new, exciting opportunities. And that really kind of struck me. So right now, as you're thinking about it, this is your reality, and it sucks. I know it. I've been there. I've felt that pain. It really does suck. But how you approach it now, Lee and Dan have done a great job of, here's what you did when you're at Disney. Well, do that now. One of the things we did at Disney is when there was a problem, we solved it. Here's a problem. Let's solve the problem, right? But don't just solve the problem, meaning I'm going to go out and get a job tomorrow, unless you have to for money purposes or whatever. It's a great opportunity to recalibrate your life. What do I really want to do? Do I want to stay in this industry? Do I want to do something different? Do I want to meet new people? Do I want to live in a different place? It's a great opportunity. You've almost been gifted, because I'll tell you, you get really comfortable at Disney. And when you're there and you've got these other dreams, it makes it really hard to leave. And so now you've actually been given a gift. As much as it's hard to see it that way, you will see that later, but you've been given this gift. So here's the question I'm going to ask you. And we did this a lot at Disney too. We asked the question, what if? Yeah, we were told a lot, well, that ride will never work, or that person's never going to be successful in the job. I'm like, well, what if it does? And what if that person does do well? And what if this next job really is good? So maybe think about for a minute your journey from here and ask the question, what if? What if this is a chance to upgrade your life? What if this is an opportunity to do something better, do something more interesting, get a better boss? What if you were meant to do something more than just be at Disney? What if this really is a fresh start, a renewed opportunity, a chance to go look at different achievements and overcome new challenges? What if this creates a stronger sense of purpose in you? What if you can actually make more money, have more responsibility? What if you actually enjoy this job, whatever your next job is, more? What if you are able to pursue a dream that you never thought you could pursue? If I was at Disney, I would never have written a book. But I have now. It's something I've always thought about doing. I've written a book. I've started my own company. I'm following my dreams. I would have just stayed at Disney with what I liked, the money that was there, the people I was with. I never would have pursued this dream. What if, and Megan touched on this, what if going out and doing something else makes you more valuable? What if you learn a new skill, or you go deeper into a new skill and you acquire something that you wouldn't have got otherwise at Disney? What if you're supposed to go to a new city? What if you're supposed to try a new adventure? What if you're supposed to tackle the next big challenge in your life? What if your life from here, for the next 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years, whatever it is, that there's a lot more to go after? So ask yourself those questions. I would just say, look, embrace the suck, embrace what's bad about what you went through. I did it too. But think about what good could come from it, and ask yourself the what if, and look at the possibility of what could happen from here. Sometimes it's hard to do, but my goodness, sometimes it is so exciting and energizing to think about what potentially is ahead of you. And it always reminds me of this thing that people have told me, is that change always triggers progress. You've had some change, and now it's time to go through your own progress and upgrade your life. This is the opportunity to look forward, right, and not look backward. You can, Lowell touched on it too, which is you can stay a part of Disney. You can, if you're here in Florida, you can still go to the theme parks all the time. You can still be a part of D23 or do whatever else it is, and be part of Disney, and be in the read all the chat boards and participate in all that. You can still feel Disney without having to work for Disney. And this is less about Disney, and this is more about your life. And so you can either stay backwards and think about Disney, or you can start thinking about your life. Everybody on this webinar here has taken the approach of, I'm taking control of my life, and I'm moving my life forward. I will always have Disney. I'll always have the memories. It'll always be there for me. I'll always know the people from there. I'll always take what I learned from there. But this is about my life and what I'm going to do going forward. And so I hope that helps just a little bit as you think about going forward.
That's great, John. That's very inspirational, I'll tell you. The book you wrote, the Standout Experience. I know you focus more on students and younger professionals, but I think there's a lot of things in there for everyone to realize. When you're going out there right now, there's a lot of unemployment. There's a lot of jobs to be filled. You got to figure out what you have that's going to differentiate you. And once again, I love the idea of Lowell is it's about me. And we talked about that in the last webinar. Get a little swagger and walk in with that confidence. And it's not the Disney way, but I went through that also. And my wife, Valerie, after I talked to someone and didn't tell them a lot about what I did at Disney previously, she said, all right, I love your humility. It's great. But you better start telling people you ran the Magic Kingdom because we got to pay the mortgage. Yes, ma'am. And so she's like, get on it. So I think that's important. But yeah, that differentiation is, and yeah, embrace it. I like that. Embrace the suck. I think we're gonna make a new T-shirt. If you want to get that on Etsy, or go ahead and that could be someone's side gig. There you go. It's great. Thanks, John. Okay. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat group and see if there's questions. And while we're waiting and looking at that, Lee has heard everyone speak. And so any wrap up here?
Oh, I enjoyed all those conversations. We all have something in common. We did it. We're still running. We're still out here. I would say literally, there's a freedom after you leave Disney that's hard to understand until you do it. And there's nothing more exciting than learning and knowing things. And I think we heard earlier that you become a specialist at Disney, and in life, you have to learn to be a generalist and take on just about anything. And for the long haul, for the long term, we always talk about how hard it is to do hard things, move, go do another job, learn something, how you feel when you get to a new company and you don't have a clue what's going on. And a month later, you're like feeling great. You're the expert. Everything is hard before it's easy. So take on those hard things. I think when you go to apply for a job, just get right on telling them what you can do for them. Here's what I can do for you. And you will be semi-famous wherever you land, because everybody's going to say, have you met the Disney lady yet? The Disney guy? They won't know your name, but they'll know you're the Disney person. And those are the kind of things. Just basically, an employer wants to know, what can you do for me? What can you bring to my organization? How can you help me be better? And don't be bashful about telling them that, even if they don't ask you that. And you might just say during the interview, let me tell you a few things I can do for you. And start going down and start to make a list now as you think about them every day. I think, like Lowell said, the minute you get there, you're going to see lots of things you can do for them. And research them before you go in. Look at their website, find out what's going on there, look at the ratings of the company, how people feel working there. It's all out there right now. So if you walk in there as an expert, it's going to be impressive too, that you can help them. But that's what they want to know. How can you bring Disney to me? Mm-hmm. They may not say that, but that's probably why they're going to talk about when they look on that resume and see the word Disney. Disney is a word that jumps out bigger than other words. And so take advantage of that. And as Daniel said, don't be too humble because you've got, you know so much. It's just hard, I know. That's why when I worked for Hilton, that's the reason Marriott hired me, because of what I'd learned at Hilton. And why I worked at Disney, that's why I'd worked at Marriott. That's why Disney hired me. And the reason I worked for Hilton, Marriott, and Disney, that's why my clients, frankly, I tell them pretty simple stuff and they think I've just delivered the change of life. When I say just hire people, hire great people, train them well and treat them well, they go, oh my God, that's a great idea. And safety and courtesy and those kinds of things we think about. Somebody asked me today, what do you think is the most important thing when you're a parent or an employer? I would say safety and education. Those are the two things. And those things, we don't even know why we say them. They just come out of our brain. They're stuck up. We've been, I guess, brainwashed in some way. I can talk about Disney with a client all day long with no notes. I don't need anything. I remember the stories, the little girl whose dress got wet and the cast member took care of it. And people who said, the store was closed for the night. And the cast member didn't say, well, that's the way it goes. They said, let me get the keys. Those little things that we think are normal, they're not normal. They're not even close to normal. So really pump yourself up about you got it, and apply for any job. Women particularly don't apply for jobs because they think they have to be 99% qualified. Men don't apply for jobs sometimes because they think they don't have experience. The technical experience will be the easiest thing. You'll get trained by that company. They're going to show you what to do. You're going to show so much interest in it. You're going to be on the internet. You're going to learn, and with your attitude, which is what Disney has, you're going to learn. A month after you get there, you're going to be all over it. But what you're still going to have better than everybody else is your attitude, your passion, your ability to help people, to volunteer, to raise your hand, to, control yourself under pressure. We've all been there when somebody's yelling at you or we know how to do that. And so that's just my thing. Easy for you, what can you do for me? And I would start writing down, sir, I've researched your company. Here's what I know. Here's what I can bring to you. And you may be going into a company to start up their training program. Mm-hmm. You could go into a company and start their training program in housekeeping, a hospital where they need housekeeping services, retirement homes. All the jobs are similar out there in the world. We get to thinking theme parks. No, there are many jobs are the same. And so really get an open mind about just go for it. And get on the internet every day and look at every job's available, and you're qualified. Just apply for it anyway. And I told somebody the other day, when you realize nobody really knows what they're doing, your confidence will soar. Because most people, the way you get your attitude, it's everything. It's absolutely everything. And a lot of people are faking it anyway, and you're not. You know it. You've been there. You've done it. You've worked New Year's Eve. You've worked through 9/11. You worked through hurricanes. You worked through. You've been there, and you know how to pull a group together. So I know you will. And yes, we are available. If you need some help, we'll try to introduce you to somebody. Or if you get on LinkedIn and you see somebody you want to meet, and we can connect you with them, we will. And work it. Yeah.
That's great. Josh Welch, for many, Disney is not just a job, but a culture and community their identity is built around. Do you have any advice for finding not just a different job, but work that is meaningful and fulfilling? Anyone want to take a shot at that?
I can take that one. So here's the thing. If it's truly a community that you've built, then it's a community that you're still going to be a part of. Right. I will tell you right now, even though I've been living in Southern California for the past 5 years, my closest friends who I'm still more in touch with are the ones who are still in Orlando. I think technology has made distance irrelevant. And so for me, that sense of camaraderie, that sense of community, it's still there, right? Just because I'm not physically there in Orlando anymore doesn't mean it's not still there. And I'll tell you, moving out to Southern California, before COVID, I saw them more than I did when I was there in person because they wanted a vacation here. So I actually saw them way more afterwards. So don't ever let that deter you. Number two, culture is going to happen, or a sense of community, sense of camaraderie is going to happen wherever it is. I think one thing that's really different at Disney is how many of us started Disney on the front lines or on college program. We start at a time in which we are discovering who we are. We're discovering who our network is. We're discovering who our sense of community is. And because we stay at Disney for so long, you grow up with that, and you're constantly surrounded. I think, by the time I left, one of the things that I was going to miss the most was I could walk through a park and see how many different people I have a connection with. And now I don't see that anymore. But what I will tell you is it takes time. You will get there. You will find new friends. You will find new people to connect with. Is it going to be the same? No. But the beauty of it is that if you truly do have these deep connections with people at Disney, they're still going to be there. They're still going to be there. You don't need to worry about that, right? You still have those connections. So it will be a different sense of community. I'll tell you right now, at Blizzard, the talent and organizational development team that I was part of, those are some of my dearest and nearest friends. And I didn't think I could find as close of a group as I had when I was ambassador or when I was at the Disney University. No, I found it. It just takes time and it will be there. You know, you just, I love what John said. What if you do find another group of people that you connect with and you can geek out with and that you have passion around? You never know unless you actually put yourself out there.
That's great, Lowell. And that idea of finding work that's meaningful and fulfilling, I think everyone here volunteered to do this webinar because we love doing this. And so we get to find ways to connect with people and interact with people and develop people if that's what your passion is. I think just learning that people want to have a company they work for that they're proud to work for. And I think, as Lee mentioned, do some research and make sure you're getting to a culture that really lives what their values say. Because you get in the wrong company where they don't care about how work gets done, that's probably going to be pretty demotivating. So you got to find a company that really has ethics behind it.
Don't just look at their company website. Don't just look at like Glassdoor or Indeed. Actually do a media search. Look at what customers have said about them. Look at Yelp reviews. Look at see what kind of articles are written. So for me, I branched out into the technology industry. There's always going to be articles about a lot of the companies that I've looked at and said to myself, ooh, those are the decisions that they've made. That doesn't necessarily resonate with me and who I am and what my values are. You need to make sure that as a whole, the company, its C-suite of executives, do your research and make sure that your own personal values do line up with the organization. Because I love what Lee said earlier is like, you joined a company and you didn't know what exactly you signed up for. And man, they're making decisions about social responsibility or about environmental responsibility that you don't agree with. And then all of a sudden you're now there in the company. So don't just look at the company because they're obviously going to always make themselves look great, but look at the bigger picture behind the group and read reviews and do all that. And just make sure that make sure you do your homework.
The other thing I would just add to that about meaning is most people will go to a company and then hope they find their meaning. I would say this is a great opportunity to pause, discover yourself what your meaning is and what contribution you want to make, and then go find that company that fits that. Right. And if you do that, you will find those companies where you can add value, you can have a contribution. It fits your core values. It fits your meaning. Most people don't know that, which is why they spend their entire life searching for it. But if you can ask yourself those questions now and discover it now, it actually, as much as it's more of a pause right now, instead of going out and find the job, it actually will help you find that job better if you can have a focus on what it is that's important to you.
Start with the end in mind.
Just to piggyback on that a little bit too. It can be a little bit hard for those that maybe were in the parks, especially in attractions or working the turnstiles, that really think about what you love so much about the role you are doing and where can that best translate now when you're looking and applying for jobs. So if it was a lot of different people versus, problem solving or just having the ability to say hello to your guests, think about those things and what it really was that you enjoyed about the role you were in so that you can pick a job and apply for the kinds of jobs that you will be happy to do because at the root of it, you're happy, if that makes sense. So, at the end of the day, if you're like Lowell or like myself, or you really want to see your end user, see your guests, you're not going to be happy in a job that you're sitting behind, a desk maybe where you're not seeing or talking to people as much as you might be if you're, out there on the front line again. And so just really consider that too when you're applying for jobs. And like John said, if this is a pause and you really can have the ability to evaluate what's important to you and evaluate what you really enjoyed about the role or roles you've played at Disney, then I think that will help you find something that will not have you constantly thinking, man, I miss my job at Disney. And I think that's important too, because like Lee said, your attitude is going to be everything.
And just remember that you're bigger than Disney. Disney's bigger than you, but you are also bigger than Disney. And as much as it's great advice, Megan, to look at what was it about your role specifically that you liked? But I would also say, look at your entire life and what are some of those things in your life that energize you? Think about some of the best days that you've had. How can you replicate that on the job? Think about hobbies that you just love. Ideally, if you could find something that you would do for free and you can actually get paid for it, well, now you've actually found a great job, right? So think about things that energize you beyond Disney. The bottom line is the more questions that you ask of yourself and the more answers you have, the better it is that you're going to find what it is that makes you happy and go and be successful beyond this.
Once you've been able to find that happiness as well, what is that industry? Right? I think that's where you need to be able to start equating it. And that, like I said earlier, that was like the biggest aha for me, was that I realized I am now a trained person. For those of you who work in merchandise, you realize that merchandise, retail operations, that is an industry that is huge, that is out there, right? Especially if you're looking at e-commerce, right? So don't necessarily have to look for the one-for-one fit. While I worked in a theme park, I need to find another theme park. No, you don't. Right? If you are in food and beverage, culinary to culinary, but then also look at the different support areas, right? Trust me, workforce management, human resources. If you are a GSM, right, or GM or whatever they call it now, if you're a frontline leader, you do HR responsibilities in that role. You do payroll, you do time off, you do benefits. That is all. I remember in college program, what did they tell us? It was transferable skills, right? You have transferable skills. It's just not going to be a one-for-one fit. So if you were a guest service manager, you could probably be an HR generalist at another company, because a lot of the things that you did as a GSM are things that an HR generalist does. Right? So don't look at it you're looking for a one-for-one exact fit. We always tell people, you don't want to be a square peg in a round hole. Shave down that square peg so it fits and then make it work. Like, that's what you need to be able to do. So find the aspects of the job that you love and ask yourself, what industry am I a part of? Like I said, I finally got to say to myself, I am a learning and development professional who just happened to get to do it at Disney. Now I'm a learning and development professional who gets to do it at Blizzard Entertainment, right? So what kind of industry professional are you, and where are you now going to get to do that same thing elsewhere?
And then I would also just add real quick, give yourself the ability to have freedom. And what I mean by that is the freedom to change if you're wrong, and the freedom to experiment if you don't know. So if you don't know what it is you want to go do, give yourself the ability and the freedom to, I'm going to go try this industry, like Lowell said, or I'm going to go try this job. Look, it's not, whatever decision you make now is not going to be the rest of your life. You've got the ability to change that again. When I left Disney and went to Madison Square Garden, at the time, I said, I'm only going to leave for a company that has sort of the same values, that feels the same and everything else. And I went to Madison Square Garden thinking that was it. And then I said, you know what? I actually want to work for myself, right? I want to be able to inspire people. I want to be able to help other people. I want to work for myself, be my own boss. And so it changed. So give yourself the freedom to change when you make this decision, and then give yourself the ability to experiment. Obviously do that smartly. Like, don't put your family in jeopardy. Don't put yourself in jeopardy. But I think freedom is really important as well.
That's great. Well said. Another question for those, this is kind of a double question. For those who are looking to turn their side gig into a real gig, how would you suggest they figure out the worth of their work? And then after being told for years at Disney what your salary is, or your hourly wages, how do you figure out what you need to get paid in the outside world?
I can take that real quick.
Yeah.
Because this business that I have, and again, I'll nod to Dan for helping me, make this leap, because you did it first. But I was doing this as a side gig. I was writing my book on the side. I was building the idea for the business and how I was going to do speaking and all that kind of stuff. So I was doing this on the side as I was working for Disney, as I was working for Madison Square Garden. What I would say in terms of your worth, there's a couple things. One is it's really good to benchmark, right? I don't know what, Nate, what it is that you're selling or whatever, or what your service is or what the experience that you offer is, but you can benchmark. Like public speaking is a great, like Lee, Dan and I, we do public speaking, right? When I first got into public speaking, I'm like, I don't know what to charge. Like what people are going to pay. And so sometimes I did it for free just to get my name out there. But sometimes, you benchmark, you ask people, okay, so someone just starting, they get this amount. Okay, great. If you've written a book now, you get this amount. If you've got a specific specialized topic, it's this. And sometimes you try it. You try a price, and if it doesn't work, you adjust the price. It's the same thing we did at Disney. Like we didn't always know exactly what the price was and what the guests would always tell us what they would pay for, but then they wouldn't actually pay for it, right? So we would adjust, right, as long as we go. So I think it's really like doing your homework, understanding who your target market is, what they are able and willing to pay for, and then adjust that price as you go.
As far as the outside world in terms of how do you negotiate, I think that's going to be a big shock for a lot of folks, because at Disney, especially when you're doing internal mobility and you're going from one internal job to another, we usually don't feel the empowerment to negotiate our salaries or what an increase looks like. We're almost kind of conditioned or taught to just be thankful for what it is that we get at Disney, and you don't really put up a lot of a fight for your salary. And so it's going to be very different when you get out there into the real world. Don't sell yourself short. Look at your years of, you look at things like years of experience, plus you look at your education, your certifications, and then you look at potential. There are ways to be able to see what is a salary range. You can also do not be afraid to ask what the salary range is for a job. Do not be afraid to ask that. Also, if you are asked what you make, you do not need to share that. You could be able to share what it is that you're looking for in a range. You could also ask for what the range of the job is. Now, there are going to be some jobs, especially if it's an hourly job, where it might be this is the pay and this is what it is, point blank. But if you are in a position to negotiate, know that, and there are a ton of sites. If you go into like Monster, Career Builder, you go to Indeed, Glassdoor, there's a lot of great articles on how to negotiate. Like I said, don't sell yourself short, but also know what is within market value for your role. So don't be afraid to ask, what is the salary range for this job? Because you are 100% within your right to ask.
And I would add also that depending some of you different than others, but don't get so focused on the salary that you disregard the opportunities in that organization and how they're growing and how many jobs they have. And I always told people when you come to Disney, the benefits or the healthcare and all that wasn't the most important thing. It was the opportunity to get training, development, learn, build your resume, and become knowledgeable. And that paid off. And how many people at Disney got promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted? And opportunity is a big deal. And it's worth more probably long-term than your starting salary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say too, for anyone that does end up looking at making a move, also research the cost of living change. I've done that twice now, and it does become an important part of negotiating your salary. I moved from Orlando to Seattle, big difference in cost of living, right? So if you are considering making a move, relocating, some of those things will also play a part. Move from Seattle to Houston, big cost of living difference. So Also do your research on that. And like Lowell and Lee were saying, you know, not necessarily just on, you know, the position itself, and ask about the range. That's definitely very important. I will echo that. But consider too, if you are moving, the opportunity to grow. Are you willing to take a little bit less in pay because you might get an opportunity sooner than you think, or that learning experience? And are you moving somewhere that you're either going to have more or less cost of living?
Mhm.
And then Low and you all, Megan, you have to consider if you're in Seattle or California, you have to buy fire insurance. Or if you're in Houston, you got to have flood insurance.
Very true. Very true.
Yes.
So
I'm
some of these,
actually in a hotel right now because the fire was right up to where our neighborhood was in Irvine. So that's
right,
how I have these fancy curtains
this week,
behind me.
right? I know.
Yeah.
But they evacuate 60,000 people, or Anna.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's crazy.
A couple
But
other comments that someone taught me was, for example, if you are a consultant or you're in your business and 100% of the people are accepting your price, you're probably too low. So you probably are too to move up a little bit. And the other thing I think Nate mentioned, he paints his father and his grandfather paint houses. Um, you could say, you know what, painting houses is a relative commodity and people can undercut you in price. That's why you have to differentiate your business. Whatever business you're in, you have to make it different than all the other painters, because most businesses we find in being entrepreneurs, it is not just putting a price on the internet and waiting for someone to click on it. It's someone here knowing who we are, talking to someone who we worked with, getting recommendations, word of mouth. And that's what Disney was. Everything we did at Disney was to get people to come back again and to recommend us. And that's the business model. And so if you're out there doing something, you have to do it with quality, and then you have to find out a way to make it special. And a lot of that's through service. It's about really connecting with people. When Valor and I work with companies, we take a very personalized approach. We do meet and greets with all the executives, everyone who we're going to be working with. So we want to be different than other consultants. We want to get to know them on a personal level so we can help them. So you got to figure out what that looks like. I know I've also heard comments like on Etsy, a lot of people doing sort of side gigs and crafts. They way underprice their stuff. They're breaking even. They pay for materials, but they don't take their time into consideration. And if you have quality stuff that has a great story behind it, people will pay for it. And you're not going to sell as much, but don't sell yourself short. And as John mentioned, you know, pricing is an art for sure. And you learn as you go. Sometimes you have to do stuff for free. Sometimes you're going to charge and people are going to say no, and then you just offer less. And sometimes they're going to pay you more. And it depends along the way, but you just got to get a reputation for being really good at what you do, whatever it is you do. And that's going to help you command a higher price, whether it's a product or a service you're offering.
I might add an example of that, Dan. You said painting houses. We had a client that I got to know, and he has a painting company, and he employs college kids while they're going to college and others, but he will not let any of his employees paint inside your house without 4 years experience, because it's got to be perfect. And he also offers at the holidays or other times of the year, you're having a party, they will come out and do a free touch up in the house of scratches and dents. So sometimes we think, how could you add any value to a painter? They're amazing what you can do, and being on time, and I mean, the things just like at Disney. I mean, reliability, credibility, expertise for a painting, and yeah.
Well, and Nate's question is about, price it as a hobby or price it as a business. At the end of the day, the consumer doesn't care whether you're doing it as a hobby or you're doing it as a business. They want their house painted and they want it painted right. So the only difference between pricing as a hobby or pricing as a business is whether or not you need to do things like cover overhead and stuff like that. But think about the consumer. Don't think about you and what you're charging. Charge what the consumer expects and the value that you're giving the consumer.
Good. All right.
Charge more. You can charge more if you can explain what more you're giving. I mean, yeah.
So being an entrepreneur, you know, I have to go to outside services for stuff. And if you know, at one point I was making stickers to put in my books when I shipped them to people. And I went online and I found, and I taught, and I looked, I'm like, I don't know which one to do. So I called a guy who's done stickers. He's like, you should use Sticker Mule. I said, really? He goes, yep, they're great. I went on Sticker Mule. You put in your graphic, and within 20 minutes, they send you back the proof. They text you, they say, click here. If the proof is good, hit click order and you go. And because it's so fast, I've never even considered going anywhere else now because they're so quick. And I've talked to people who do other sites. They go, yeah, sometimes it takes 48, 72 hours. And Sticker Mule's figured out a way to do it within 15 minutes. They send you back and they probably get a ton more business because they differentiate themselves with speed. So you just got to figure out what is it's going to make you different, stick out. Because once again, I didn't find them online. I talked to someone who said you should use them because he had found them. And now I'm telling you, and that's how businesses grow. It's great. Very good. Well, I don't see any other questions coming through. We are going to post this on YouTube. We'll post the link on the Ear for Each Other Facebook site. And I'm sure that on our personal Facebooks or wherever, we'll put this around and try to get it out there, and you can give it to other people. And once again, we've been there, and you know, we know how talented Disney people are, and we love to help out here. And I think we're all ready. If you on LinkedIn want to connect, and as Lee said, we get calls from people who are looking. I've personally recommended 3 people who are 2 of them are certainly going to get hired by the companies I talked to, because I knew who they were because I've been there and I know a lot of people, and I know this group knows a lot of people. So once again, everyone hang in there. This is not an easy transition, but as John said, just when you get in those moments, just say, hey, what if? And there's a lot of doors that are going to open right now that you don't even realize that what the possibilities are. So as we say, turn lemons into lemonade. All right. Well, Megan, Lowell, Lee, John, thank you all very much for being here tonight. Thank you all for hanging in there and watching this. And I hope everyone's safe and everyone take care. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.